know what most YouTubers don't tell you? Is that it freaking takes a lot of energy to find the background, to find the things, to find the like, okay, if you have a perfectionist in you like I do, I'm really sorry because that part of us is really hard to manage when we want things perfect. So, hi, happy freaking Tuesday. I am excited because today we're going to talk about shame. And when I figured out shame and understood some really mind blowing concepts, it changed the game. It changed the way I operate in relationships. It changed the way I treat myself. It changed the way I felt connected. It changed the way that I really just showed up. It just changed the way that I showed up. So, how many of you have had a really shameful experience? And how many of you even know what the heck shame actually is? And how many of you consciously know where your shame actively shows up in your life? Like, have you ever done something and you're like, why the heck did I do that? Like, why did I just do that thing? Right? And sometimes it's like autopilot. You're like, how the hell did that just happen? So, this is going to change the game for any woman who feels less than, who has shame around her body, because I really resonate with a woman who's been divorced, with a woman who's gone through some sexual trauma, with a woman who is so aware that there's potential inside of her and doesn't know how to like unlock it. I'm also really relatable to the woman who loves passion and not passion, fitness, or has a passion for fitness, or really just loves to give love. Like, isn't that why we're here, to share love and to like know what abundance feels like and to give and to serve? Like, duh, it's no wonder why we're all like hurting at some level, because at some point we stopped loving ourselves and we're withholding love from ourselves based on something that happened. So, for some of you that don't know my background, I was married at a young age at 20, and we went through a lot of trial and error. And I was figuring out me. I had no idea who I was, and he had no idea who he was. And well, that's just how that happened. So, porn showed up at a very early stage in our relationship, and I had no idea how to handle it. I had church leaders that were super supportive. I had really loving parents that were like, really understanding to the situation. I just couldn't understand why it kept happening. And then after the pornography started happening, it was like the gateway into the entrance of like adultery and into some other things. And the way I reacted to that now, looking back, right, the adult version of me versus the little teenager in me can see exactly how I added to shame in that situation. And shame, just for a quick reference, it's like that little devilish voice that says, you're not worthy and you're not loved, and you have like a junk drawer or a closet that you should hide and keep everybody out of, because if they saw that pile of crap over there, or they saw your past, or they knew what you struggled with, then you would be unlovable, right? Like, it's that nasty voice inside of us that says, cut off, disconnect, isolate, run. That's what that says. Shame is, you're not worthy, you screwed up. Disconnect from love, disconnect from your source, disconnect from your God or your higher truth or your power, your people, your friends, your family, your loved ones, and then sink deeper into the addiction, or sink deeper into the body shame, or sink deeper into whatever it is that's got you stuck, right? So with my marriage, that was pornography for my husband, and I couldn't relate. I didn't understand, but I know how it made me feel. I know how it made me feel as a woman being on the opposite side of that. And so he carried a lot of shame. And you have to remember, shame will do anything and everything to protect the secret, to protect the dirty, nasty things that people don't talk about. And so his shame would show up and pornography would happen. And I would feel less than, because I had my own story of, well, that means I'm not good enough, or that must mean I'm not beautiful enough, and that must mean I'm not fulfilling in some way, and I need to be like them, which is a whole nother episode in itself. But for today, just to understand where his shame was, and then having my own insecurities, I went and piled my shame onto him for doing that thing. So imagine he's in his own shameful experience where shame says, hey, watch pornography, disconnect, isolate, and get away from your wife, right? Like, come over here. Let's go binge and hide over here. And then I have my own insecurities, which played into it because every time he disconnect from me, I made it personal. I made it personal because now I feel less than. So, in a space where someone's already hiding and is ashamed and doesn't feel very good about their actions already and knows they shouldn't be doing that and is very aware that it doesn't feel good, right? Like he's got his own world going on. And then I was over here with my own crap, my own insecurities about my body. Like from a little age, I was hyper aware of my body, and felt so much shame in it for a lot of different reasons. And I promise we'll talk about that because some of the things we carry that are shameful aren't even ours. Newsflash, they're not ours. And so when he would watch pornography and I would catch him or ask about it, if I wasn't being an FBI agent ready to shoot him because I was insecure and I was desperate and I was needing it, then I would go over to him and try to talk about it, but he was cut off. He wasn't willing to connect with me. He couldn't because it had gotten so big and so out of control that now we were dealing with something that was in between us and there was no rescuing him. Like that wasn't my job. So I'll tell you what I did instead. I took my shame of not feeling good enough and not being, connected to my body and feeling like I was somehow the issue. And I went and took that shame and I piled it onto him even more. Like, yeah, you are a crappy husband and you are a crappy human being for watching that. And why can't you stop? And you don't love me. And so I took all of my heavy shame and I came to my husband thinking he was the problem, not being self aware, and dumped it on him. Like, okay, and especially if you were raised in a culture like I was I was raised Mormon, LDS, super, super Christian family. And anytime the word pornography got brought up, it was like, red flag. Like we were taught not to watch it. But the thing under that was actually the issue. Like I never heard anyone talk about shame. And so if I knew that he was doing those things not because I wasn't pretty, not because he didn't love me, not because he was a crappy husband, not because I needed to leave him if he wasn't being loyal, not because of all of the programming and the things that people were saying around me, but if I understood that he was dealing with his own shameful experiences, I would never have stepped into an arena where I dumped my shame onto him even more. Because when you're dealing with your own shame, right or wrong, you're already trying to get out of it. Like you're already trying to fight the gremlins that are like, you're not enough, you're crappy. Well, because you're crappy, you do this anyways. Like you already have an addiction. Let's just go all in. Like nobody loves you, so why not? By the way, if people found out this about you, like you definitely wouldn't belong. And if you don't belong, oh my gosh, like numb out because now we're afraid. Like it's an entire cycle. Okay. So this isn't about porn. This isn't about any of that, but that was where my shame showed up the most was in a relationship where he would turn to his own addictions over here. And then there was a whole nother concept of me needing to have my own boundaries. But even before boundaries, even before that came about, I needed to see where my shame was playing a role in this because my body shame wasn't for him to fix. In fact, he couldn't. His pornography addiction wasn't mine to fix. But to be conscious in a relationship where you can actually talk about where shame is and air it out, shame cannot coexist or coexist with light. So it's like this dark boogeyman running around in your psyche, in your head, and it's telling you these lies. And if you're not conscious or aware, you believe them really fast. And it's this little boogeyman. And as soon as you're willing to turn on the light and just observe and notice that you have shame, you don't feel the need to go disconnect and isolate. It's the weirdest thing because now all of a sudden I can connect with you in your humanity. It's like, holy crap, like you have an addiction and I have an addiction. They're just different addictions. Like I'm addicted to feeling less than and crappy and having insecurities about my body, and you're addicted to porn and you're addicted to these things, and they're not two different things. We both have shame. But what's really amazing about conscious relationships is that when you can talk about the shame, it no longer exists. But we're in a culture and society where we think the way to kill the shame is to kill our partner or to kill the outside person who's rubbing up against the shameful thing. Like for me, I had really, really bad shame, like I said, around my body image, around binge eating. Like I'm a freaking fitness trainer for hell's sake. Like, and I don't have abs and I don't look like these Victoria's Secret models on social media. And it's like all of this stuff that gets plotted into our mind. And we can say that we know not to believe those things, But when we're in the privacy of our own mind, do we actually know that, right? Like shame is that thing that likes alone time with us because it's really easy to convince us when we're not interacting with people to just keep isolating, to keep going into it darker and deeper and harder. And it's really hard to try to pull someone out of that when they're stuck. And by the way, it's not your freaking job. So I want to hone it back in because your only job is to A, identify where shame shows up in your life, and B, after seeing where it shows up, your job is to not fight the enemy, but to love the enemy. Let me tell you why. This boogeyman of shame will fight harder the more that you come at it with weapons. Okay, so have you ever had a thought, like not very nice thought, a judgmental thought, probably bitchy, and you fought it? Like you fought the voice. Like I would fight the voice that's like, Bree, you're not enough. You freaking don't look like those other girls that your husband is cheating on you with. You're never going to amount to anything. They're freaking drop dead gorgeous. They're obviously some sex goddess that you're just not capable of being. Like, and I'm being really honest. Like these were my gremlins. And I can share that because I know they're not me. But my gremlins, these shame voices would tell me all these things and I would believe it. So here's the danger. When you believe shame, not only are you just dealing with isolation and some really obvious behavior, but you start to take it to the extreme. So for me, that meant not just going to the gym, but that meant like starving myself. That meant binge eating when no one was looking. That meant going on runs at 3 a.m. and working a graveyard shift at the same time. Really unhealthy behavior because then I started to believe that I would gain worth and love and acceptance and validation and a loyal husband if I looked like this. Do you see how deceiving that is? Like shame is so good at wrapping us into an idea or an image that makes us then believe something and then we start behaving a certain way. And it's really, really gnarly. So I just did an entire breakdown on the psychological part of this for any woman that even struggles with binge eating like I did or struggles with wanting to feel like they're enough just with body specifically. And the last idea that I want to give you with shame is that yes, we know that we don't want to fight it because it will fight back harder. Okay. It's like just because I know the thought is there and I fight it, now it's like almost like chaos because this is what's happening inside of your head. Where if you just love it, it's really weird. It's like light and it just dispels. It's gone. Because in the thought of, hey, you're not enough and you're worthless, I can love that thought and be like, thanks for sharing. Love you. See ya. You're not welcome here. Like that is so neutral where you don't get swept up in the drama where if the voice is like, hey, you're not worthy, you're not lovable, you're fat and you're ugly, and I fight it, I'm like, that's not true. I mean, you would only fight it if you were afraid that it might actually be true, right? Like, have you resonated with that? Like you fight the thought because it's like, what if it was true? Like that would be really sad. It'd be really sad if I didn't belong anywhere. It'd be really sad if I was unlovable and just kept marrying husbands that were going to cheat on me. Like that would be sad. That's fearful. But love says, hey, like that's not true. Thanks for telling me that, but that's not true. And so then you begin to feel like relieved because you're like, oh, shame isn't who I am. Shame is actually the enemy. And when you can do that, when the thought comes up, you can literally be now aware. My goal of this video is to make you conscious and aware that when you're experiencing a circumstance that feels really heavy, just look under the circumstance for a minute. So take the body fat, put it on the shelf, put the pornography, put it on the shelf, the hurtful, abusive husband, put it on the shelf, the kids that are really hurtful and saying mean things to you, whatever you're dealing with, put it on the shelf for just a minute and look at what shame has been self-created. Like, what are you telling yourself all day long? Like, are you saying, okay, I don't deserve this and I'm unworthy and I deserve this treatment? Or are you like, oh, okay, shame is present and there's a part of me that believes my history and my past keeps me from not being able to connect with people. And shame is really, really ugly because if we're not aware or conscious of it, then we're screwed because it's going to keep showing back up. And I have an entire another video of the ways that it kept showing up in my life. And it showed up through people outside of me. And when I saw my own shame, oh my gosh, it was like, not today, Satan. It was like, wow, like there's not an enemy outside of me. It's actually inside of me. It's internal. The battle is an internal one. The shame is inside. The shame is like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to tell you this. And here's the truth. and this happened, or this is where I'm struggling. And then we share. And you know what's so beautiful when you share is that shame actually exits on its own, doesn't want to be part of the conversation. It's not interested because now it doesn't have a hook on you. And when shame doesn't have a hook on you, you're free. You're like literally free. Like you get to choose. Like, do I buy into shame or do I buy into love? Like, yeah, I had body shame issues, and I'm not saying that went away overnight because I had created some serious deep beliefs because I let it go on for so long, right? So then there's this whole other journey in the flip side of that. But what I'll tell you is that when shame shows up, it's the teacher for its exact opposite. And for me, the word I choose is innocence. When I don't have shame about my body and it just is, and it's a blessing and it's a vehicle and it's beautiful and it can be chubby or chunky and have stretch marks and whatever, and I'm not comparing it to something that's fake on social media, then I'm innocent. I'm just innocent because there's no shame. And my intent is to just be love. And when your intention is love, you just come into innocence. And it's so freeing because, like, imagine being in innocence instead of shame. Like, it's so much lighter, right? So here's my takeaway. Tell me where you're struggling with shame, where it's showing up in your life. If you didn't get a chance to go and read my Instagram reel on what that looks like psychologically when the circumstance shows up, and then the thought shows up, and then a feeling and an action and a result, you should go look at that because it happens so damn fast that it takes 20 minutes in a video to break it down into bite-sized pieces. And when you see it in like 6 or 7 steps, you're like, oh, my brain has a pattern of thinking this thought when this shows up. And you know what's really empowering if you're a woman, especially if you're a woman, is that when you enter a relationship and you've dismissed your own shame, you don't go pile it onto your partner because it's not their place to fix you because you're not broken. And then when their shame shows up, you're operating from a loving, compassionate place where they don't want to freaking run from you. Like I was a monster. I was so insecure. I mean, I'm not saying I deserved what I got. Like that was tragic, and I'm so thankful for the learnings. But here's the learning after going through it is that I wasn't a safe space for him. So of course he kept running to the shame that said, "Hey, go numb out and go check out and do this." And then after you're done doing the thing you know you shouldn't do, I'm gonna make you feel like a piece of crap again. And then to have a wife that's like, "Yep, knew you're a piece of crap." Like, is he gonna want to come spend time with me? No, because I'm not safe. Right? And so it starts with us. Like we're not safe with someone else until we're safe with ourselves. And we've got to have some real self accountability because shame is like, it's not who we are. It's just something we've bought into for way too long, whether it's society's lies or the culture's lies or, you know, your freaking grandpa's beliefs back when he was here. Like sometimes you really have to wonder where it's coming from. Like I have generational, I'm not talking 1 or 2, generational patterns of the shame that showed up for me that I can actually point out like 6 generations back. Guys, it's deep. It's not kind of like, well, in a perfect world, we're all happy and we're spiritually bypassing ourselves with positive affirmations. Like, get real. Shame is a very big part of why people operate the way they do. And when you know where your shame is, it's very easy to have compassion when another human shows up in their raw form and they're not wearing a mask because they feel safe. So I want you to go find me on Instagram if you haven't. Thank you for watching this channel. I really, really hope it serves you. If you have anyone else in your life that can kind of relate, like, do you have a heartbeat? Are you a human? Do you struggle in life? Do you have a mindset? Or is your mindset? That was pretty good. Or, you know, like my point is everyone can benefit from knowing what's going on internally because when we all heal, we're not putting our crap on other people. We're not projecting. We're not pushing it away. And then we actually get to a place in a sweet spot of connection. And that's what we all want is to connect. So let's connect. Drop down below your comments and tell me where you struggle with shame. Like, where does that show up for you? And where has that been playing a huge role in your life personally? Whether you're a mom or a spouse or a girlfriend or independent or single or whatever, I also have a discovery call where you and I are going to break down those things that are getting in your way from having actual self-esteem, from actual self-worth, because I can promise the person I was 5 years ago is not the woman I am today, and I am freaking climbing a ladder that I have never ever climbed before. And it's exciting and it's empowering. And when you embrace the totality of who you freaking are, like nothing can stop you. But what can stop you is your shame, your guilt, the lies and the beliefs that you hold that are chaining you down. And I know you know because before watching this, you've had nights where I could guess that you didn't feel like you even wanted to live. And if you haven't, you're really awesome and lucky. But my point is, share this video with someone that needs it. Find me on Instagram. Let's actually connect and let's get down under the surface of what's really going on. And that's what my discovery call is for, is to help you identify really the roadblocks and then to move them out of the way so you never have to deal with them again. And it's better to learn that now than for a situation to show up and you're like, I want to die. Like I literally want to die. I've never experienced this kind of pain before. And that's how I learned. So you're welcome. But I'm really excited to get to know you on a more serious note. So I'm excited. Have a happy Tuesday. And I will also make sure that you have access to my podcast. So until next time, bye.